We honor that time on our workshop for this evening. I know we have two that we are going to try to get through. One from our Human Resources Department and one from our Caldwell Executive Airport. So Shelley, you get to go first. So the time is yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, and others. I'm Shelley Boggy. I'm the HR Director for City of Caldwell. We wanted to take a few minutes just to share with you our proposed paid parental leave policy. I've given all of you just a one page of the draft, so you should have just the one page in front of you to take a look at. Again, we just wanted to answer any questions that you have. Get any feedback from you. We want a final version to go on your January 2nd agenda for your review and approval. So today is just a review. And as you know, the Federal Family Medical Leave Act, so FMLA, gives all employees up to 12 weeks for the birth and adoption of a child. We're just talking about for bonding. This isn't for medical. This is just for the time for bonding. That's the 12 weeks that they get under the FMLA. So this paid parental leave would pay 6 weeks of that 12 weeks. Because the FMLA is unpaid, and employees usually run it concurrently with their paid leave. But typically moms, they could use our short-term disability plan. So short-term disability is 6 weeks. It's 67% of somebody's salary. So this is going to be more than that, right? This is going to be paid 100% for the 6 weeks. And so they can choose, and that's the way it's written in the policy. They can pick either or. We're not going to have employees stack that time. Typically, dads take up right now up to 6 weeks, but usually it's limited by whatever PTO they have on the books. So if they only have a couple weeks, that's typically what they take. If we give them this paid parental leave, most likely they're going to take that full amount of time to be able to bond with baby and help out mom. So take a minute and review that draft policy. Again, it's 6 weeks per calendar year per employee. And it's for benefit eligible employees. So if people already accrue leave, they're going to be able to have that. It works a lot like paid administrative leave. So it's in addition to the PTO. Again, moms would need to choose if they're going to use the paid parental leave or the short-term disability, and it needs to be used within 12 weeks of birth in a block of time. We're not going to allow an hour here or there. It really needs to be the block of time and within that 12 weeks of birth, not intermittent leave. There are some government employers that are providing paid parental leave, but many still are not. It's a very generous benefit, I think, for employees, a very nice thing to be able to do for moms and dads who work for us. There really isn't any budget impact, right? We're budgeted for our salaries for employees, but the time really, the impact is the staff time away from work. So each mom and dad would have the 6 weeks away from work, so it's just covering the work that needs to be done while they're gone. That being said, they're already gone for all or part of that time now anyway, but this is would be that additional paid parental leave. So with that, I will stand for any questions that you might have or feedback that you'd like to see in the final version.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any questions from council? Councilor Stoddard?
So Shelley, on the parental leave, so if young lady has twins, it's 12 weeks. If she has triplets, it's child.
Right. So everybody gets a maximum of 6 weeks. Yeah, a maximum of 6 weeks per employee per calendar year.
All right. Thank you. I'm just kind of pulling your chain there a little bit.
Kind of the same thing when we were starting our family. I told my wife, let's have twins and get 2 for the price of 1. Then I found out, no, they charge you for 2. So it wouldn't have helped anyway. But yes, no, appreciate that. Any other questions, comments from any council members?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, Councilor Allgood?
Just so I understand this, they're going to get 6 weeks of paid parental leave. Is there a requirement they use their accrued leave? I mean, is that required that they use their accrued leave before they start on the 6 weeks or not?
No, they wouldn't have to use so they get to keep that in their bank, and this would just be the 6 weeks from the birth. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So prior to birth, if there was some complication that made it where they couldn't work, they would use a sick leave or whatever else was appropriate at the time of birth, then they can move to this.
Right, so this is just for the birth or adoption, but certainly FMLA covers all the rest of that. So if there's medical issues associated with a pregnancy, FMLA will cover that. Again, it's unpaid, and it can be coupled with the employee's leave. So same thing after the 6 weeks of paid parental leave. They could go out for the rest of the 6 weeks for the 12 total of FMLA. They could either take the second 6 weeks unpaid or couple it with their PTO.
Okay. Councilor Doty?
Mr. Mayor, just one comment is that just to ensure that legal signs off on it, I'm sure you've done your due diligence, but just make sure that they are aware or that little things like Councilor Stoddard pointed out, just that it doesn't get us in a bind. So just make sure if we have time to have them initial that and sign off on it.
Yes, a draft has been shared with Taylor.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Shelley.
Okay,
Really appreciate
all right.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. So that puts us into our next workshop, and this is from the Caldwell Executive Airport to review the proposed development application policy. Appreciate Director Swanson in bringing this forward. So I had the opportunity to meet with Director Swanson earlier today. I know there's been some concern in regards to this, moving this forward too fast, not taking input. But again, this is simply a workshop to provide some information to council, as we discussed earlier today, to make sure that whether on the right path or not, so rather than trudging down this road for 3 or 4 months and finding out, no, that's not what council wants. That's what tonight is, to find out what is council's thoughts and direction to make sure that if we're not going down the right path, we can come back and go down the right path rather than trudging down that path for too long and wasting everybody's time. So again, there's no decisions being made. It's just a presentation to kind of get some feedback on what Scott's presenting and any direction that the council would have for Director Swanson.
Absolutely. Scott Swanson, Director of Aviation, City of Caldwell, Mayor, Councilors. I presented this document as a very rough draft, as it is an idea that is floating around the Treasure Valley on airport properties for a better way to get development processes to come to airports in the area. And what it looks like, instead of a standard historical RFP process where the city generates an RFP for the airport for a specific piece of property, we could take an idea or a proposal from a developer that wants to build on the airport property. We would take that, city staff, we would summarize that into a essentially not so much as a design, but just a concept, a build out, what they're providing to the infrastructure and the land area they want to use, and then advertise that as a summary statement to take competitive bids for the next 45, 60, or 90 days. And then after that period is done, go back, evaluate, and then award like a normal RFP process. This will alleviate city staff from having to, as non-developers, try to write an RFP for a developer, which can be difficult. And that way, we're kind of going to use the developer's language to start with and then produce an advertisement that's going to create a bidding and competition and fair and open market on that process for land on the airport. The biggest thing on this being able to hide essentially the overall build-out plan of what said proposal we take in gets put out, and then really make that competitive enough to see what other ideas and ingenuity gets generated as far as what they can provide to the city. And that's really the basis of it, and also to inform the council on kind of the direction I'm looking to move as far as getting development completed on the airport. I had a meeting with the FAA today, and essentially after our pavement project this year, they said to expect monies being available for future pavement projects to become more and more limited. So I'm going to be looking in the areas that are going to entice developers to come in and build the infrastructure and the pavement that we need, especially on the build out of the Bravo taxiway with the connectors and all the pavement and utility systems on that north side of the airfield to really get that going. I'm ready for questions if there are any.
Very good questions. Councilor Stoddard.
Mr. Mayor, Scott, just a few questions. First of all, was this run by the Airport Commission at all?
Not yet. That'll be run by on January 11th.
Oh, okay. All right. And relative commitments on T hangars versus other hangars, does this follow the plan, that long-range, plan that we had? Are you going towards commercial hangars before T hangars, or?
So how the master plan is set out right now, we do have commercial hangars in place around the Hubler building, and then outside of that building, going toward the east, you would have more smaller hangars, T hangar setups. But unfortunately, until we get something developed on the east side of the Hubler building, we don't have the infrastructure in place to make the smaller hangars work at this point, unless the city were to invest a large amount of money to build out the taxiway system that requires. We could use FAA funding to do that. However, the backdraw on that is that we would be sacrificing future pavement maintenance projects in other areas of the airport that are also desperately needed, like a rebuild of Taxiway Charlie, that definitely needs a rebuild. So it's going to be a give and take, and it's going to take time, which is the biggest piece. I'm just trying to find the best process to get somebody doing something sooner rather than later, and that way we can get moving in the right direction to support not only the city, but the users as well.
Do you have any, people right now or companies that are wanting the larger hangars for executive jets and that?
I do. I've fielded a couple calls out of Tulsa, Oklahoma from some developers that say they do have buyers for large hangars, probably at the small size being 5,000 square feet. And then, I know Rob Oates had fielded a call from a couple developers in Boise. I have not really dug into that one completely yet because that area is still awarded right now. And so once that is changed in the future, we can start digging into that and figuring out what people want. But with that being said, those developers and how they have operated in other areas is they are used to essentially scooping up a ground lease initially and developing over time with whatever time period gets set by the city. Like, hey, you have the next 5 years to do this. If not, it reverts back, and however that works. And the thing right now is, the maintenance on those grounds and what those grounds produce for the city is zero. It's costing us money to maintain it. And so if we can get that changed to where it's not costing us money is kind of the biggest thing moving forward until we can further the development.
Okay. Do you have, a plan in mind, now that you got your feet wet out there, as far as the ratio between the larger, commercial jet, executive jet hangars versus the T hangars? Do you have any?
That's going to take more digging and reaching out and comp studies on basis on like what's needed. Like as far as, the aspect of a general aviation airport in itself is set to relieve congestion traffic from a larger commercial area. And that allocates like making greater opportunities more available for general aviation traffic. And when you talk about general aviation traffic, that is everything. This is defined by the FAA this is all traffic that is non-commercial. So you're talking about, business, general, just recreational, firefighting, medical, law enforcement, all that falls under general aviation. So then when you look at it that way, it's kind of like what sector do we really want to build out in? What's going to be the best thing for the city and the user base? And then how is that going to look? So it's going to be a lot of planning and a lot of working with the advisory board on figuring out how best to do this and make it all work and all fit into the space we have.
Yeah. The reason I asked the question is because we can't forget that the smaller T hangars are kind of our bread and butter, and we want to make sure that we don't forget our customers that are out there right now and have been for years.
Absolutely. So no, the customers are there, and that is for sure. And I know there are people that do need the smaller T hangars right now. Right now, it's just, the monetary cost of getting those set up with the infrastructure of where we could put them is, a downside of it at this point, unless the city wanted to, allocate funding to do that over a time period. Really at this point, it's finding somebody who's going to come in and do that with infrastructure in place, whether they're building the infrastructure or building on top of somebody else's infrastructure that puts it in at the airport.
Okay. On that first page, that top sentence there says all parties wishing to build a storage or commercial hangar. Way back when, if my memory serves me right, we had a drywall company try and come out there, and because it didn't specifically say aviation or commercial hangar. So, what are we going to do about that?
No, that would get changed for sure. It's, like I said, very, very rough on the draft. The concept in itself is just a new process to bring development into the city and how we can do that. So this would be,
When you look at
Yeah.
the rentals versus, the rentals we have out there at the airport,
yep,
they're a heck of a lot cheaper for a company to use one of those for storage than if they have to go out to commercially and rent a warehouse or something, is
Oh.
my point.
absolutely. I think historically it's been the cheapest storage area in the Treasure Valley.
Yeah, it has been for years, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I asked you about the master plan already, so that's good. But anyway, like I say, we just have to be careful of that wordage, make sure that people understand it's aviation and not storage for some
Yes.
commercial industry, so that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, very good. Other questions? Counselor
I just
Register?
have a quick comment.
Yeah.
I just also, when you come back with the final proposal, would love to see the input from the pilots out there, as well as, some kind, once again, balance with the, board out there, that they have some input into it as well.
Yeah, I would not expect to probably see something back in here until sometime in February at the earliest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes, Counselor Allgood?
Yeah, I've just heard rumor, but have you had any discussion with have you heard anything about anybody that wanted to do the whole thing? Build out, give you a plan to develop the entire thing by one company?
I had one company ask if they could enter into a ground lease for 170,000 acres and essentially build infrastructure with a discount rate on the rental, and then build hangars to suit for people that wanted to come in and have them. So, and you're talking about a large area of the airport and how that would actually work and look. And at the time right now, obviously rates are set by council. For something to be worthwhile for a developer, it would completely be a super discounted rate from what it's set at. And it would have to see like really how that's going to look at, where somebody can recoup their cost, what that amount comes out to, and then also what that's going to like pretty much, how that's going to stand moving forward in the future, and then how things are developed as well. Like who is being, ignored on that aspect as far as people with large money coming in with the ability to do this with the backing, and then like who do we also need to take care of as we continue to develop the airport for the use for general public as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going with that, is being more customer responsive if we have control over that a little bit. So just so I understand, kind of a west to east build out so the infrastructure moves with the growth?
Yes, absolutely. Because essentially this year we have the east build out of taxiway Bravo for a few hundred feet, and then a connector down to the main runway to create circulation on that north side. And ideally we could see development continue to follow that process. I think what we're going to be looking at in the future is just trying to find a developer that's going to help us continue to extend taxiway Bravo further east, once that kind of FAA pool of money for that process starts drying up in certain areas.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Counselor
Mr. Mayor, Scott, where do we stand on the FFA tower project?
So right now in the tower project, we are going to be conducting the sitting and sighting survey at the end of January. Essentially, they were out here in October and they did a drone flyover of the airport to essentially 3D map the entire airport. In January, it's going to be a virtual thing, but they are going to come in and essentially like the Oculus 3D system, look at 3 different tower sites set out on the airport, see which one's going to work the best, and then pretty much say, once you get more into the tower program, it's going to go there. And that way the city will be able to protect that land for the tower. And then also we have a BIL request for funding in to do a 30% design and environmental evaluation on how that process is going to continue forward.
So they'll be able to dictate to us where the tower is going to be, is that correct?
They will be able to tell us the best location the FAA feels for the tower underneath the contract tower program.
Okay, but do we have to follow that recommendation then, or do you know?
I would say it's probably a 90-10 as far as figuring it out. My thought right now, the best place is probably going to be within that triangle that was bought up where the old house used to be, just to the east. I feel like that's probably gonna be the best location.
So 90-hour decision, 10 theirs, recommendation for size of the... I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments or direction you wish to give Mr. or Director Swanson in regards to what was proposed?
A comment,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Mhm.
I appreciate your work. I appreciate you looking for solutions to a problem instead of it costing the taxpayers more and more money. And I think, Counselor Stoddick stole all my questions. You must have been looking at my papers, so thank you for the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you mind maybe just a really quick, synopsis of where we're at with the two, I think there's the two RFPs that are out there, the one with the farmhouse, on that, and then the other with the, one that's right next to the airport terminal, just really quick, just so the council can...
Yeah, so with the farmhouse right now, that project was awarded to Imagine Ventures, with Aero Ventures being, or Imagine Aero, excuse me, being the aviation arm of them. I had a sit-down meeting with them at the beginning of November. The developer themselves and the construction company, the Wright Brothers out of Eagle, are ready to move forward at this point, and it's just waiting for their legal department and our legal department to come to consensus on what is in the paperwork and how that's going to look. I think it's a 95% solution based on what Kevin Halverson said, the developer. He is good with it. It's just waiting for his lawyers to tell him he's okay to sign it. And then the northwest triangle that was awarded to Sprintbach, I had a meeting with Zach last week, and they have a copy of what I had given Imagine Ventures as a lease and development, and they are continuously reviewing that while being super busy with what they do as well. But he said I should have an answer very early in the year on how that's going to look on that development with Sprintbach.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, we appreciate the information that was provided. Again, this was simply a workshop to provide information to council to get some direction on that. So we appreciate HR in presenting the paid parental leave proposal, and then also to Director Swanson, everything that he's doing out there at the airport. Is really leading a great charge out there, so appreciate that and all his time. So that will conclude our workshops at this time, and so we will adjourn that, and then we will be back at 6 p.m. for our regularly scheduled city council meeting.
My friends down there.